Hi everybody, Pastor Mitchell here from Argyle-Pubnico Baptist Church. I want to say thank you for joining in with us today from wherever you are. As you probably already know, as a church, we've decided to suspend all of our face-to-face activities for the foreseeable future in light of everything happening in our world today. We don't feel like this is a move of fear or a move out of panic, but it is in fact one way that we can love our neighbor as Jesus taught us to do. As a church, we've always had the mission to lead people to trust in and follow Jesus. And that mission should come to bear even now more than ever, whether we can gather in this building or not. And so I want to encourage you today, if you're tuning in, to like and to follow our Facebook page or our YouTube channel. And I'd encourage you too to share some of the content as we go forward, maybe with somebody that might not have access to any of these mediums, but perhaps also somebody that you want to invite into the conversation. And so thanks for joining us. I hope that today's message both encourages and inspires you to take your next step in what it means to trust in and follow Jesus. Well, hey everybody, so glad you've chosen to join us this morning. If you got a Bible with you, I want to encourage you to go ahead and turn to Psalm 46. That's where we're going to be today. If you are at home and you know you've got a Bible somewhere, you're going to blow the dust off it, feel free to go and grab that. Or if you need to download a copy on your phone or your tablet, I'd encourage you to go to whatever store that you get your apps from. You can download YouVersion or the Faith Life Study Bible. There's lots of Bible apps if you want to track along with us today. I'm going to be reading some of the scriptures for us as we go to, if you just want to follow along by listening. But we're going to be in Psalm 46 today. And as we wander into the world that we live in today, with everything changing so quickly, we know that the whole world is being interrupted right now. And so for this morning, we are interrupting our regular series through the book of Exodus. We're going to be taking a break from that over the next little bit, right up until Easter, if not even a little bit beyond. So we're going to take a break from our normal series in the book of Exodus, again, because the whole world is being interrupted. And the question that arises in these moments is, what are we going to do? And what have you been doing with yourself, whether you've been in quarantine or self-isolation, whatever it's been with COVID-19 making its way around the world. I don't know if you saw this past week, but there's actually been a video gone viral out of Florence, Italy. There's a guy there singing opera from his balcony. His name is Maurizio Marchini. And if you look it up, you'll be able to find him out on his balcony. His wife is recording it. He's got the music playing, and he is singing opera to all of his neighbors. Now, I know for some of you, that might sound like something that brings great joy to the community. For some of you, you cover your ears and say, please make it stop. Regardless of your thoughts on opera, I guess the reality is that a lot of people during these times are finding lots of ways to make their way through, to preoccupy themselves. And so one of the things that's happened is that music has become a source of inspiration and encouragement for so many people, and rightly so. We all probably have our favorite songs, don't we? There's those songs that we love to listen to, that are meaningful for us. Maybe it's a song that that was playing when you had your first kiss. Maybe it's the song that you danced at your wedding to. Maybe it was your prom, your high school prom. That's the song that you danced to that you remember the most. Maybe for some of you, when you've gone into your cancer treatment and they give you a chance, is there a song or two that you want to listen to while you're undergoing your chemo or your radiation? We can throw that on for you. Maybe there's a song that has encouraged you through those times. Maybe it's just simply because now is the time when it seems like things are warming up a little bit and you can finally roll down the windows of your car and not freeze to death, that you can crank up that song, whatever it is. Or maybe you go and throw back to your hockey days. It seemed like every single time we warmed up playing hockey when I was a kid, AC/DC Thunderstruck was the song that got played, and I'm pretty sure all these years later, it is still the song that gets played at every hockey warm-up for whatever reason. But we all know that songs and music are significant to us in a variety of ways. Because songs are the kind of thing that move the soul. And there's songs that we love, and songs that we listen to, and songs that are meaningful for us. And this morning, as we turn to Psalm 46, we find this psalm in the first bit of a collection of 150 psalms. We call it the Book of Psalms. There's 150 different poems and songs that have been written and copied for us that we have a collection of that we can read through today. The thing about these psalms is that they're written by a whole variety of authors. One of them is King David. If you know anything about King David and his story, he was a man who was a warrior poet. He had his mighty men, his band of brothers. He was that kind of guy. He was tough. He was rough, but he also played the harp. And so we have this warrior poet David writing lots of songs, lots of poems that have been captured and kept for us in this book. And there's a variety of different authors. And not only that, but there's a variety of different genres to the Psalms. Just like you might think of, the country song today where, the wife left and the dog left and the truck is gone and, everything, the world has fallen apart, to songs of celebration that we would turn on and dance to. We'd crank the music up and flick on the disco light if you got one in your house, and man, you would just pump out the tunes. There's all kinds of different songs for different moods, with different styles, with different messages. And the Psalms are very much the same. Some of the Psalms that we have in this collection are Psalms of celebration, of moments of joy, things that are the author and those singing are excited about. And there's also some songs that deal with complaints and laments, and God, why is the world like it is, and how come everything is unfolding the way it is, and why do certain people get ahead, and questioning. And so there's a variety of genres within the Psalms themselves. But for many people, these songs have significant meaning and are a great reminder to them in moments where they don't know what to say, they're not sure how to express themselves because of whatever's happening to them in the world around them. These Psalms have been a great meaning and comfort to so many people along the way. And so today I want to offer to you a psalm, Psalm 46. It's a song. And in times of trouble throughout the ages, if I can just say and remind us of this, that this song in particular has been a song that has been so meaningful and an anchor for countless people when they go through times of trouble. And I hope that for you today, wherever you're tuning in from, that it becomes the same for you. Here's how it starts. It says this, that God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. God is our refuge, a stronghold, an impenetrable fortress. That's how God gets described at the very outset of this whole thing, that there's nothing that is going to be able to tear God down or to take him out. And not only that is he a stronghold and an impenetrable fortress, a refuge, but that he is very present, a very present help in times of trouble. And the word used for very present actually carries a bit of a different nuance to it. It actually means a well-proved, that he is in the mix, that he has an outstanding track record. So we can kind of look back and see how God has been a stronghold to those in the past, and that he continues to be a stronghold and very present help to people even now who find themselves in places of trouble. When our security is threatened, when people are in danger, when we don't know what to do, God is a very present help. He is our refuge and strength in times of trouble. You see, because the one thing that the scriptures reveal to us, one of the things the scriptures reveal to us is that no matter what changes in the world around us, that God remains constant. He never changes. And for some of you today, that is the one thing that you need to hear. That you can take refuge because God is an ever-present help, a very present help in times of trouble. He is a refuge and strength. Verse 2 says, therefore, in light of all of this, right, we will not fear, he says, even though certain things happen, because God is a refuge and in strength and an impenetrable fortress, because nobody can overtake him, because he is firm and secure and does not change, even because of these things, the psalmist says, that we will not fear, even though we might say, there are things to be afraid of. Because, is that not true? I mean, it's easy to say that I'm not going to be afraid, or I will not be afraid, but there are things that we have to be fearful of. There are lots of things in this world that cause us to fear, but we don't have to fear even though there are things to be afraid of. And for many of us, fear breeds all kinds of things in our lives, right? When we experience fear, we experience anxiety, we experience uncertainty, stress. Some go into depression. There's all kinds of things attached to fear. And the psalmist says, because God is a refuge and strength and a very present help in trouble, because of those things, I will not fear. And he goes on to say, even though the earth gives way, though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, and though the mountains tremble at its swelling. See, all of these descriptors of waters roaring and mountains falling and the earth giving way under your feet, all of those things are chaotic forces that you and we have zero control over. Those are things that could happen in the world around us, or under our very feet, or the mountain beside us, the ocean near to us. All of those things are descriptions of forces of chaos that we cannot control. And doesn't that sound like, in many ways, our world right now? But we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. Why? Because God is a refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. There comes a contrast that follows, that the psalmist offers us a bit of a different reality for us to be able to walk in during these times. He says this, he says, there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. See, the river is a contrast to the chaos of the roaring ocean. He says, this river is the holy habitation, there's the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. God is in the midst of her, and she shall not be moved. In other words, that will not totter, that cannot be shaken. What? God is in the midst of her. God will help her when morning dawns. The nations rage, the kingdoms totter. He utters his voice and the earth melts. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. You see, when nations rage, when things are in an uproar, in an age of outrage where we wonder if someone is doing enough or not doing enough, whether our government is helping enough or not helping enough, when kingdoms try to figure out a way forward, right? When there's a pandemic, when all of these things happen, God can simply utter his voice. In other words, he speaks and things happen. And God, the psalmist reminds us that God is with us. There it is again. It's not the first time that he said that in this song already, that God is present, even when it may not seem like it. He says then in verses 8 to 9, come, behold the works of the Lord. See, there's this invitation to come and see what God has done. How he has brought desolations on the earth. He makes wars to cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow. He shatters the spear. He burns the chariots with fire. You see, what's being said here is that God is not intimidated. He is not powerless to act. His hands aren't tied. It's not like he is unable to help. You see, the thing that happens for us is that there's always this temptation when things aren't going well, when things go wrong, when we experience trouble, either personally, nationally, communally, whenever there's trouble that comes our way, one of the temptations that we have is that we begin to think that maybe, just maybe, God has left the building. Or it might even draw the conclusion that God might not even exist at all. Because where is he in the midst of all this? What is it that he is up to in the midst of all this? Because right now, it doesn't seem to me that he's doing anything. Why doesn't he just speak his voice and things happen? But I want to push back a little bit this morning in this way. Because I wonder if maybe, if we fall into that line of thinking, maybe we're thinking about it the wrong way. You see, maybe God is actually saying something to us. Maybe he hasn't left the building. Maybe his hands aren't tied. Maybe God is actually speaking in the midst of the mess and the trouble we find ourselves in. Maybe the reality is that we've been too distracted to pay attention. Here's what comes in verse 10. It says, "Be still and know that I am God." Be still. That word means to release something or to let go of something. It doesn't mean be irresponsible and stick your head in the sand and make all kinds of foolish decisions and just roll along that way. That's not what this is about. This being still means to pull yourself into this space where you're letting go or releasing of things so that you can recognize something. Because it says not just be still, but be still and know. Be reminded. Have the truth. Be certain of something. Know, he says, be still and know that I am God. That I am the creator of the universe. I am the sustainer of the world. I am the redeemer of people and of all things. And so one of the things that we need to be reminded of is that this is God's story from beginning to end. Yeah, it's our story because we play a part in it. But man, the bigger overarching picture is that this is God's story from beginning to end. That God created the world and he put it into motion. He's the one who caused all things to exist, and it all belongs to him. And not only did he put it together and create it, but he holds it all together. You see, the temptation for us is to think that if we have the control, if we can do all the right things, then we'll be able to keep it together. But man, you and I know so many times in your life and mine where we have not been able to hold it all together. And God says, I hold it all together. And not only that I will turn it around. I will do something about it. I can bring redemption out of these circumstances, out of the thing you're experiencing, out of the trouble that the world is in now. And not only that we need to be still and to know that he is God. We need to be reminded of this, where he says, I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. I will be lifted up, God says, that my fame and my glory will be known all over the world. Not just in one spot, not just in one place or in one city or in one community, but all around the world. I will be known. So let me ask you the question. Because in these troubled times, what or who is your refuge? What or who is your refuge? When you think back over things that have transpired even in the last week or two, to just what life was like normally behind that. I mean, right now for some people, their refuge is buying toilet paper. I mean, you know that. You've seen the videos at Costco and everywhere else. You've walked into your local Walmart and you've seen the empty shelves because everybody's getting toilet paper. Right? Because we want to be prepared in the right way for the right thing. But for some of us, listen, even beyond some of these things that have unfolded in the last couple of weeks of COVID-19, let me just ask these kinds of questions. What has become the refuge for us in our everyday normal life? Like, is it chasing concerts and live music? Is that the thing that we find our greatest refuge in? Is it going on vacation? Is it headed to Disney? I mean, Disney is closed for the first time since it opened. I mean, that has been shut down. Theme parks across the world. Vacation spots, ships are, all the cruise lines have been docked. They've all been docked. Like people aren't allowed to travel. I mean, and I'm not down on any of these things. I think they're great. Man, I've been to Disney a couple times, and my family loves lots of Disney stuff. But here's the reality, is that we find our refuge in all kinds of things. For some of us, it might be our finances. That's going to be our security, right? Making sure we got enough at the end of the week to pay the bills. For some of us right now, we've been monitoring our investments, and we're just afraid to look at them now, right? Because the whole stock market is tanking. Man, those things that you thought were going to be there for you in your retirement and your security, those are eroding away. For some of us, we find our refuge in substances. Man, you drink alcohol to numb the pain. Right? You have whatever drug that you're on. That's your escape from whatever issues that you're confronted with, that you're trying to find a way to not deal with, or to deal with it in a way that you can escape to something else. Maybe for some of us, our greatest refuge is our health and being able to take care of our bodies. And when there's disease and pandemics, and if that's going to get taken away from us, we're fearful of what could be. So in all of these things, if you think about your life, what is your refuge? Because when we don't have any of those things anymore, what are we left with? Who are we as people? Why are we here? What is constant? What is it that is reliable? Let me say this to you first. Church, if you are a person of faith today, I just want to remind you of this. This is good for us to hear. That God is your refuge. We have a very present help in times of trouble, and it's God himself, and he cannot be moved, and he will not change, and he will not walk away. Find your refuge in him. Don't panic. Man, this is the time for us as the church to rise and to shine. I mean, we're going to be rolling out some things over the next little bit about some ways that we can do that. But for now, just be still and know that he is God. Find your refuge there. Because the reality is that people are watching. People want to know if your faith is going to hold up in times of trouble. Then your refuge, it's got to be in God. Now, if you're just tuning in with us from wherever in the world, man, you stumbled across this feed for some reason, maybe somebody even shared it with you, and you're just kind of curious, maybe if you stuck with it so far, man, good on you. You're curious about, man, what is it that the church has to say in the midst of all of these things? What is it that Christians are going to hold on to in the middle of it? Maybe you're looking for some shred of hope in your trouble, whatever it is that you're finding yourself in today, whatever circumstance, and you're tuning in, and maybe you're wondering and you're watching. Let me just, can I say a few things? I came across this article that was written on March the 10th, March the 13th. It was on Sportsnet, written by an author named Michael Grange. I loved reading the article. It was absolutely fascinating to me. The thing that caught my attention was actually the title. Here's how the article started. You can look it up on Sportsnet and you can find it. It says this is the title: "Without our altar of sports to pray to, how do we handle these times?" I mean, one of the things that he goes on to say in the middle of this, I found absolutely fascinating. He says that in our secular society, where sports has become the church of our culture, and what he's saying is that that's the place where people are gathering. Right? There's been a shift in our culture away from the church to other public places in an increasingly secular society. Where is it that we gather? Well, one of the places is sports venues. We fill them up all through the week, all kinds of times. And that has become, in many ways, as he says, the church of our culture. And he asks, given the fact that the NBA has shut down its season, the NHL, right? Every single professional sports league right now is not functioning, not operating. And if we thought that wasn't enough, even minor hockey has been shut down for the season. Like, with all of those things, he asks the question in the middle of the article, and I find this absolutely fascinating. He says, is there enough methadone for the world? Man, what a powerful question. I mean, because if sports has become the church of our culture and that's taken away from us, what will we do. No, I'm not down on sports, man. I love sports. I played hockey, minor hockey, for 9 years, right, growing up. Hockey was like, we were at the rink 3 times a week. Like, I loved playing hockey. I'm a Habs fan. Don't hold that against me, right? But I'm a Habs fan, right? When I got married, my wife, big baseball, Blue Jays fan. So like, I've been brought into that thing too, go Jays, right? I even jumped on the Raptors bandwagon last year, last spring, when they won the NBA championship, like all those things. I'm a Patriots fan. Again, don't hold that against me. And in fact, I know that the whole internet blew up, right, this past week when Tom Brady signed with the Bucks. Like, I don't know what we're gonna do when it comes next season. Like, do I cheer for Brady? Do I cheer for the Pats? Like, this is a real deal and a real issue for some people. But here's the reality. Like, I love sports. Like I'm not down on sports. I'm not saying everybody should give up on sports. That's not what I'm trying to say. But what I'm saying is what this article raises as the question in a secular society where sports has become the church of our culture, right? Is there enough methadone for the world? And the way that the article finishes just leaves us with this open-ended, basically the solution is let's just hope this gets better. Man, let's just get through this until we can get back to the church that we worship in. And so the article basically finishes with, until we meet again. And we just hope this blows over. We just hope this passes so we can get back to the thing that we do. But I think there is a better answer. In times like this, when we're confronted with ourselves and who are we and what are we doing and where is this all going and who am I really when I don't have all of these things, when I don't have all of my securities or all my normal rhythms and patterns of life, man, what is it all about? And again, I think there's a better answer. And just to be clear, it's not binge watching Netflix and Disney Plus for the next 3 months. One of the things that is raised in the article was a quote by Karl Marx, which has often been quoted through these days. I've heard it in a lot of different places, a lot of different ways. Karl Marx once said that religion is the opiate of the masses. The opioid is a painkiller. Religion is the opiate of the masses. And it's been said that religion is a crutch for the weak. And if I could push back just a little bit against that, like, just hear me out for a second. I think it's actually more than that. In fact, I think our situation is worse than that. And the thing that I want to avoid is us somehow trying to push a religion into the mix. Because Christianity does not offer us a religion. Christianity offers us a person. And his name is Jesus. And so when you look at the story of God from beginning to end that we have recorded for us in the scriptures, I mean, when we consider how it all started with God creating the world and setting things in motion and giving human beings responsibility, right, in right relationship with him, man, he set things up for us in all this provision. If there was one prohibition, it was don't eat from the fruit of the tree. And man, our foreparents, Adam and Eve, right, collectively as humanity, we thought we would know better. And that we could carve our own path and make our own way. But what that ultimately led to is something that we call the fall. To sin, which is disobedience and disregard for God. And the world has been in chaos ever since. That's why we have relational breakdown, right? Why there's blame shifting, why there's issues, right? Why there's conflict and strife, why there's disease, pandemics. Like, all those things are a result of the fall, of God's good creation coming undone because of sin. But what God does, and this is the beauty of the story of the scriptures, is this, that God does not just walk off and abandon God just constantly pursues and pursues and pursues, and he steps into the mix, and he steps into this world. In fact, he became flesh. His son Jesus stepped out of heaven, walked the earth like we do. He enters into our pain. He doesn't just stand aloof from it, somehow removed, just speaking, wise things from the clouds. That's not how God operates. Man, he steps into the pain and the mess of our world. He experiences it like we do. He experienced temptation to sin, even though he didn't. He committed no sin, but he became sin for us. In fact, God himself in his son Jesus was crucified on a Roman cross, bearing the sin of the world. He knows what it's like to suffer, to experience pain, and to have everything taken away from him, even to the point where he would die. And isn't that our greatest fear? I mean, isn't that the final word for most of us? Like when we're dead, we're done. It's over. Isn't that one of the things that people fear most? Like, who am I and what is this life all about? I mean, I could die tomorrow. I very well could. And so in the midst of all of that, Jesus enters into the pain, suffers like we do. He dies, but then the story takes a turn. That 3 days later, just as he predicted, he rose from the dead. And that's what Easter is all about. It is about the resurrection of Jesus. And you know why the resurrection is so important? It's so important because it says that death does not have the final word. That Christ raised from the dead, victorious over death. And so here's the good news that comes into the trouble in the story, right? Like if we have sinned and we are cut off relationally from God, we are deserving of consequence for that, right? It's ended up in all the trouble that we face in our world. We were dead in our sin and our trespasses. We were just limping along. We didn't just break our arm or our leg, that we somehow needed the crutch of religion for those of us who are weak to make our way through this life. No. That is not the story. The story is that we were dead in our trespasses and sins. See, because it's worse. It's worse than that. We were dead in our trespasses and sins. And what is it that God did? That God made us alive in Christ Jesus. So is the Christian faith a crutch? No. I just call it for what it is. Man, it's like an AED machine. Because we were dead, and somebody had to snap us back into life. And the person who could do that is Jesus himself. So here's the reality for us. I think in many ways, right now in our world, we are being forced to be still. We're being told not to move, to self-quarantine, to isolate, to all of those things so we can help stop the spread of COVID-19. And so many people are being forced to be still. And it can be painful. Let's just be honest. It can be painful. There are all kinds of concerns and fears that can come with that. I love what C.S. Lewis says about pain. He says this, he says, pain insists upon being attended to. The other night I was sitting on the couch, and somehow in whatever it was, my sitting there, one of my legs fell asleep. And it went numb, and I made the really dumb decision to decide to stand up and walk to bed while my leg was still asleep. And so I get up off the couch, and I'm hanging on to something. I'm kind of walking along, right, stumbling down the hall a little bit. And then when I had nothing else to hang on to, I took another step, and then the leg that was asleep buckled underneath of me, and I lost all of my balance, all my footing underneath. I fell, landed on my right knee. It was a bad crack. It's still sore. I landed on the floor, laying on my stomach, helpless to do anything about the situation that I was in. And I heard Carolyn, because I let out a yell as I went down. You can imagine me falling to the floor, what that must have looked like or sounded like. And so Carolyn is down the hall, and she yells from the bedroom. She says, "Are you okay?" And it was one of those moments for me. It was like, I'm not sure what I say to that. Like, am I okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Like, I'm not dying here. But man, like, I'm hurt. I don't know what I did to my knee. I don't know if my other leg's going to be okay. And so I just didn't say anything. Well, when she came out of the bedroom and down the hall, she runs down. She's like, are you okay? Are you okay? Just laying on the, she thought I had a heart attack. And so she's looking at me, and she says, are you okay? I said, yeah, I'm fine. It just hurt. Like, it hurts really bad. And she said, I was really concerned for you because I didn't know what was going on. And man, but I'm laying on the floor, like, how do I deal with this? I got to get up and get to bed, and like my knee is sore, my leg is coming under the sleep. But man, it was painful. And the thing that happens when you experience pain is that pain insists, C.S. Lewis says, on being attended to. There's some point where you're going to deal with the pain. But here's what he says. He says, God whispers to us in our pleasures. He speaks in our consciences, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. And I can't help but think that right now, that maybe, just maybe, God is shouting in our pain. And what he's saying is, be still and know that I am God. I can heal your soul. I can meet you at the point of your deepest need. I know you're anxious. I know you're concerned. I know you're worried. I know you're not sure about tomorrow and what it's going to bring, and the next week, and from here on out. I know all of those things, and I know what that's like. But I believe that the scriptures tell us that God's got a plan and a purpose for this world and for you and for me. Because the thing that I think we discover in our pain is that what we really long for is a world set right. No, not true. I mean, we just hope that relationship issue gets resolved. And we just hope that somebody's healed from their cancer, right? Or from whatever disease they carry. We hope that there's not going to be any more tears and crying and pain and all of those things. We hope for a world that just functions well and is good and right and beautiful. That's the thing that we all long for. I mean, we might have different ideas of what exactly that looks like, but man, isn't it true that we all long for a world set right? And the reality is that this word tells us that day is coming. It's just that we live in the middle of the in-betweens and the here and the now. God will do it. He's gonna say, there's gonna be a day coming where there's no more tears, no more crying, no more pain. All of those things are gonna be done away with, and we will live in harmony in the presence of God, of a renewed world. He will do it. The way that we're gonna be a part of it is if we trust him and follow Jesus. Because here's the reality. God sent his son into this world to seek and to save what was lost. To do something that brings us alive where we were dead in our sin and our trespasses, where we were cut off from God. He invites us into life with him, a life where our sins can be forgiven, where our past is done away with, where we are made right with God because of what Jesus has done. And I don't know where all this lands for you today. Maybe you're just looking for a refuge and a strength. In the midst of the chaos of nations in an uproar and of things going sideways and wrong, maybe you're just looking for some shred of hope. And here's what I got to offer you. Is Jesus. He is the answer to that question. How do I find peace in my soul? How do I be made right with God? And it's through what Jesus has done for you and for me. That he died for our sins and was buried. That he rose again and was seen. And by putting our faith and our hope and our trust in him, may we find life. And so I just want to encourage you today in taking your next step, whatever that looks like. Maybe for some of you, your next step is to discover more, to find out more. Maybe for some of you, it is dusting off the Bible that's sitting around your house, that you need to open that up and take a look and be reminded again of things maybe you'd heard long ago or somebody once told you about. Maybe your next step is to tune in next week or to listen, or maybe it's just to reach out to talk to someone. Man, I'd love to be able to do that. If you want to fire me a message, I'd be glad to chat with you 6 feet apart for the time being. But man, if today you want to take that first step in trusting and following Jesus, I want to encourage you to pray with me as we pray together. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much that you are good, and that in the midst of whatever chaos we experience in this life, that we can find a refuge in you. And God, I pray for the person today that needs to be reminded of that's looking for refuge in all kinds of places that ultimately will not bring satisfaction to the soul. God, I pray that they would take that step to trust and follow you. God, whatever that step looks like for them next as they discover more. But God, I pray today even for the person who might be ready and willing to take that step now, that they just admit, hey, I believe that I've sinned and offended God, and I believe, Jesus, you died for my sins, you were buried, that you rose again, you were seen. I put my whole faith and trust in you for the security of my soul and my future to be reconciled with God. And God, I pray for the person who needs to take that step today and is taking that step maybe even now, that they would find life in your name, of what it means to trust in and follow Jesus. Lord, in these turbulent times, in this unprecedented point in history where the world has changed so fast, may we find our anchor and our rock and our hope in what Jesus has done for us, we pray. In his name, amen. Well, thanks again for tuning in. We hope that today's message has been an encouragement and an inspiration to you, and we hope to find you back here once again next week. Until then, take care.